Talk to me about the way that you handled your Candlelight Exteriors, which I think were just so beautiful. Particularly, my God, that final scene in the first episode is just gorgeous. So talk to me about that. Let's start with that. Exterior candlelight scenes. How are you approaching those in this show?
It was a big discussion with the production designer, who was amazing. And I was always asking, what could there be? What was there available at that time? And it turns out, especially in England, that gas lamps were just starting to come into being. So it was a very early on. So we stretched it a little bit. I think they actually came out on the streets of Paris maybe first, and then in London. But it was very early on. But we sort of, reached a little bit into that. And so he put in gas lamps that would be powered somehow by, I don't know what they used at the time, oil or something. So there was that to work with. So we had a little bit of that. But as far as night exteriors go, you're lighting usually huge swaths of sets, and so you're putting up big units far away to sort of light as much as you can and get an exposure. I'd heard about the windy light for most of my career, and that it was something that David Watkin had built and designed for night exteriors. And it's basically an array.
What is that? I haven't heard of it.
A windy light is a sort of an array. I don't remember exactly, but they're small sort of lamps in an array, in a large array that he used to project one source. So at night, often in older movies, you're seeing a lot of different sources coming from a lot of different directions. Yeah. But to make it more natural, if it's moonlight, it should be from one source. It should be from the moon. You at least you start with that idea. So he created this light that could be built out into a large array of lamps, of bulbs, and I think they're called Fay bulbs, and then put up on a crane and then pushed into the scene from behind as a backlight or a side light, something like that. So we had that out. Yeah. Actually. It was it's been superseded with LEDs now. I've been working lately with Airflex sky panels, large 360 sky panels. And what's great about that is you can dial in remotely with an iPad. There's a guy standing next to you who can change the colors of all the lights that you're working with. And to pick a certain color for night, we're using a bit of daylight. There's a bit of green in it. There was a color that I tested that I really like called Virgin Blue, I think it was, which seemed appropriate for our show. And we use that quite a bit to glow the windows, the curtains, and things like that. I felt I could take the liberty of introducing something a little artificial a little fairy tale to the night work, so that it didn't have to feel real, but it had to have this sense of a fable, which is how we kind of approach the whole show. So it was that sense of being able to play a little bit and take some liberties and make it a fantasy.
And I think something that was kind of interesting about your choices, both interior and exterior, is that the candlelight never felt too warm and too dark. It always felt like it's almost like it felt like the way you would interpret candlelight if you were in the room.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Your eyes adjust to the color. So if you have a scene on a film that's super warm, yes, that's what candlelight can look like. But after 20 minutes, your eyes adjust and colors start to look normal. You go into a room with normal light, everything looks blue because your eyes are making that adjustment. And this came from the showrunner too. We did a couple scenes, obviously, like Barry Lyndon, they were going with this warm candlelight. It was amazing. And I did a couple scenes where it had that feel that there was an overall sort of warmth to the scene. I thought, well, it's candlelight. This is probably what it would look like. And Chris Van Dusen, commented a few times. He was like, "Oh, it looks really yellow. I'm not seeing the colors of the costumes and the design coming out." And I had to agree with him. I was like, "So let's pull back on that. Let's keep it warm in the skin tones, but neutral in the set design and the costumes, so that those colors would come through naturally." And obviously, those colors are spectacular. So
Yeah.
again, to lift that veil and sort of feel. And was an eye opener for me to do that, because I was, sort of trained to do things naturally, and that was my instinct. But, now it felt wrong to layer that on top of it. So yes, you're right about that. It's how your eyes might actually perceive a scene like that when you're in the middle of a ball and there's candles everywhere.
Yeah, and it's also like, I mean, you'll see like Game of Thrones or something, and it's super dark. Everything's candlelit, in those scenes, but it's almost like you're constantly when it's dark, you're constantly reminded candlelight, 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 candlelight. In your show, it's almost like you sort of establish that there's candles in the room, but then after that point, it's just light. And it's kind of a different, and I think that's part of what makes it feel more modern, is because it was just the light source of the time. Like, we're not making it a big dramatic thing. That's what we used.
Yeah, that's a great point. I found that, I would put, you'd have candlelight or moonlight. And when I was just lighting faces with that same color, it tended to, it felt wrong. It didn't look right. You were disconnected from the characters. And there'd be candlelight in the back, or an edge light. There'd be a bit of fire. But I was often lighting faces more neutrally with LEDs, or a source of bounce light or something soft, so that it was pulled back to a more normal color. So I would set the camera to create a warm feel in the room or in the space outside, or blue or moonlight. But I'd always add something to the face to bring it back to normal. And I thought that might feel wrong somehow, because it wasn't normal, and it was natural, I guess. But it actually was great, because now you're just looking at the characters. You feel that sense of warmth or the moonlight or whatever, but you're also experiencing the performance, and it's not getting in the way. And it feels more modern, I guess. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Well, something too in like those big ballroom scenes that I was thinking about when I was watching it is, it's like the candle, like a big candle chandelier, is up high. It's
right.
Almost like it really is kind of like a ceiling bounce more than anything, because the lights are up high. You're up against what is probably going to be a white ceiling. So it's kind of this, you almost have like this top-lit light environment. Like that, it's top-lit. It's basically, as I was watching it, I'm like, this whole room, if this were real life, this would be a top-lit scene, the whole thing. And then I'm thinking, like, are you actually just doing that and then carving things out with, are you shaping a full flat top-lit source? Because that's really what it essentially would be, with multiple candle chandeliers high up against the ceiling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Almost every one of these large spaces has these large chandeliers above them. So we tried to pull them into shots. Often they were adjustable on sets, and sometimes on locations as well. We had some amazingly expensive chandeliers. We were shooting in Bath in this one location. It was for, I think, one of the first balls in the first episode, or maybe the sixth episode. I think it came in. And so, yes, that was the motivation. Again, I'm always looking for where's the light coming from? Why is it here and not there? And so for us, yes, it was chandelier light. That's what would light the set, or this particular location. And the way that you do that, and this is very common here, I've found, you're basically shooting in museums in these locations. A lot of these locations, you can't touch anything. You can't rig anything. You can't hang anything. You can't put a screw in, or even a piece of tape on the floor or above. You can't touch anything. So you have to approach it very carefully. And the crews here know how to do this. They've shot in these places before. So, for instance, to black out windows when you're shooting in the daytime, for night, often the windows are up high or over a large sort of space. The basement has a big gap in the ground, so you can't get close to the window. So they have these things called manitous, which are big. They're like construction machines that can lift things or whatever, like a forklift. But they build a frame and make it all black, and they push it up against carefully against the buildings. You can put a light inside there to light the windows a little bit with moonlight, but basically they can black out all the windows with one of these machines for each window. Incredible. And then inside,
is it just like a huge crane?
Yeah, it's like a crane, but it's like more like a big forklift, and they rig on the front of it. Yeah. On the front of it, they rig, and it has an extending arm, so it can reach out and push against these buildings and cover the windows. So they build these frames to cover around the windows. So you can't go up with a ladder and just tack on a bunch of material, or there's no way to put a big tent up because there's no support underneath. So they do this with machines. It's great. It's very fast. You can go from day to night very quickly. And you can put a light inside the box so you have some glow in the windows, which is great. And then inside, we work with balloons quite a bit, illuminated balloons. So they have tungsten light if it's night, or a mix of tungsten and daylight inside the balloons. And they're all different sizes. These are really common in the States as well. But you have to use them in these places because, again, you can't touch anything. You can't, even as you're floating these lights up to the ceiling, these ceilings are quite high. There's somebody keeping an eye on us to make sure we don't damage anything, because there's incredible paintings and architectural detail and stuff that they want to preserve. They're happy to have you there, but you have to be very careful about how you treat these places. And of course, we wanted to respect that. So balloons played a big part, and we were able to place them just out of the shot. Sometimes I'd be able to bring them down. If I was doing coverage, I could bring them and have them light faces a little more. But it allowed us to shoot these big, wide, shots in these incredible spaces easily.